Saludos y bienvenidos a otro episodio de Lo Chévere del Derecho. En el episodio de hoy tendremos la oportunidad de ver con detalle la argumentación oral que se dio esta semana que acaba de pasar en el caso de Dobbs versus Women Health Services, que es el caso del aborto y las 15 semanas del periodo de viabilidad de la ley de Mississippi. Entonces vamos a analizar y a discutir con profundidad los argumentos que se esbozaron ante el tribunal, pero antes de entrar de lleno en la discusión de la argumentación oral, les voy a explicar una mini síntesis de lo que se trata el caso y pues sencillo, la pregunta en el certiorari que hicieron los peticionarios, en este caso Dobbs, fue si los estados estaban prohibidos de pasar de pasar leyes o regulaciones que afecten el aborto antes del periodo de viabilidad. Y pues esa fue la pregunta que sometieron a certiorari en el tribunal y el tribunal acogió el certiorari. Pues sabemos que Casey estableció lo del periodo de viabilidad específicamente. Roe versus Wade tuvo otro test que ya mismo voy a hablar sobre el caso. Pero algo que quería también comentarles un poco de trasfondo. Roe versus Wade la escribió el juez Blackburn. El juez Blackburn fue nominado por Nixon. Nixon, cuando ganó para la presidencia, ganó diciendo que iba a nominar jueces conservadores, y Blackburn pues a través de los años se convirtió bastante liberal. La segunda opinión, que es la de Casey, donde se toca mucho el tema de deresis o de la cosa decidida, presidente decidido. Pues en Casey cambiaron unas cosas, pero el macro de todo siguió siendo el mismo, que era que las mujeres continuaban teniendo el derecho al aborto. O sea, en cuanto al macro, después de Casey, ¿verdad? Y me adelanto a una explicación de esto porque eso fue uno de los argumentos que veremos del abogado de los peticionarios, en donde está diciendo que cómo vamos a hablar de Esther Deris si el mismo Casey cambió Roe. Sí cambió algunas cosas, pero el derecho al aborto en general siguió estando ahí para las mujeres. Entonces, en síntesis, antes de empezar de lleno la argumentación oral, podemos llevarnos lo siguiente de lo que pasó en esta semana que acaba de pasar en la argumentación oral. El discurso que llevaron los jueces Sotomayor y Breyer mucho antes de esta argumentación oral, y pues le doy un poco de trasfondo desde que empezó el término y antes de que empezara el término durante el child docket. Sotomayor y Breyer estaban teniendo algunos intercambios públicamente, no directamente contra los otros jueces, pero como que tirando sus dardos de que estábamos en un momento el tribunal de no revocar precedentes, como muchos quieren hacer en esa mayoría conservadora, porque hay que salvar la institución del Tribunal Supremo para que no sea otra rama política. Sotomayor pues lleva haciendo eso en parte. Yo pienso que ha sido para tratar de persuadir al juez presidente Roberts de que se una a la opinión de los liberales, pero por lo que pasó en la argumentación oral, eso no va a pasar. Y parte de Sotomayor, que dio varias clases, dio una clase de cómo funciona la Constitución de Estados Unidos, allá le llaman Civics, y también dio una clase magistral de ciencia. Y vamos a ver cómo cuando ya se da, pues que obviamente no pudo persuadir al juez presidente por las preguntas que el juez presidente empezó a hacer, pues ella cambió y dejó de hablarle pues a los demás jueces o a la gente que estaba allí, o a los abogados o al que estaba interrogando, y pues empezó a hablarle pues para el público en general, para los que iban a escuchar la argumentación y para los que iban a leer eh, esos transcripts de la argumentación oral. O una cosa que voy a estar explicando, ¿verdad? Durante esta argumentación oral es que voy a señalar mucha de la hipocresía y la falta de consistencia de parte de los conservadores más radicales en el Tribunal Supremo en cuanto a argumentos y doctrina. Por otro lado, vamos a ver, voy a estar mencionando el Junk Science y las palabras de Alito, que no me las puedo sacar de mi mente, que repitió varias veces, secular philosopher y bioethics, como si ellos fueran profesionales de la ciencia, pero, ajá. Y entonces, por último, voy a estar mencionando unas cosas durante la argumentación oral relacionadas pues con el textualismo, la tradición y la historia, pues que no son los únicos métodos de interpretación y pues lo usan a conveniencia, ¿verdad? Hay varios métodos de interpretación constitucional, la historia, la estructura, el originalismo, el textualismo, ¿verdad? La historia del originalismo. Y entre esos cuatro son los principales en cuanto a interpretación constitucional. Sé que se me queda uno, pero ya mismo me vendrá a la mente. Entonces, pasando ahora. Al principio pues empezó el de los peticionarios y empezó hablando y empezó con lo que le llaman un parade of horribles, como que exagerando su introducción, pero obviamente porque está buscando persuadir a unos jueces que ya sabe que ya tiene casi de su lado, y dice, Roe, lo que le faltó fue que llorara, hiciera un show ahí bien patético, dice, Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus cases haunt our country. Wow, o sea, como que haunt our country. They have no basis in the Constitution. They have no home in our history or traditions. They've damaged the democratic process. Quisiera saber cómo dañaron el proceso democrático, pero esa muletilla voy a estar mencionándola mucho durante la discusión la discusión en este episodio. They poison the law. They shock off compromises. For 50 years, they kept this court at the center of a political battle that it can never resolve. And 50 years on, they stand alone. Nowhere else does this court recognize the right to end a human life. Él sigue. Roe and Casey core holdings, according to those courts, is that the people can protect an unborn girl's life when she just barely can survive outside the womb, but not any earlier when she needs a little more help. That is the world under Roe and under Casey. That is not the world the Constitution promises. The Constitution places trust in the people. On hard issues after hard issues, the people make this country work. Abortion is a hard issue. It demands the best from all of us, not a judgment by a few of us. When an issue affects everyone and when the Constitution does not take sides on it, it belongs to the people. Después acá tengo subrayado el caso de Washington versus Gluckenberg, que obviamente ellos lo están mencionando porque es el único caso donde durante el desarrollo de la doctrina moderna del debido proceso de ley sustantivo se le negó una petición relacionada con la libertad que está consagrada en la 14ª enmienda. En Glucksberg, no se le permitió a una persona o no se reconoció que una persona tenía el derecho a la muerte asistida o al derecho a matarse él mismo. Entonces seguimos. Justin Thomas le pregunta, ¿verdad? Que empieza el juego textual, de dónde sale el derecho al aborto, o dónde en la Constitución se encuentra, y luego le dice, si nosotros nos revocamos Casey y Roe, ¿cuál es el criterio de adjudicación que tú pondrías? Otro que no sea el viability standard. Y ya pues aquí nos estás dando un indicio de que no van a revocar Roe versus Wade ni Casey versus Planned Parenthood, pero van a eliminar el estándar o el criterio de adjudicación de viabilidad y van a poner un criterio de ellos, dándole la luz verde a los estados para legislar con relación al aborto durante el periodo de viabilidad donde la comunidad científica reconoce que el feto no puede sobrevivir fuera de la barriga de su mamá, que es entre 22 y 25 semanas. Ese es el range de error en la comunidad científica. Antes de las 22 semanas, el feto no puede vivir fuera de la barriga de la mamá. Y esta ley trata de 15 semanas. Entonces, cuando le preguntan lo del criterio de adjudicación, dice, I would emphasize, I think, as your honor is alluding to, that no standard other than the rational basis reviews that apply to all will promote an administrable, workable, practical, consistent jurisprudence that puts matters back with the people. I think anything hiding here is going to be problematic. Claro, seguro, racional, para darle deferencia a los estados y que hagan lo que les dé la gana durante ese periodo de viabilidad. Entonces, seguimos. Breyer empieza a hablar, sus intervenciones empiezan como que con discurso bastante largos, las intervenciones relacionadas con un osteoarthritis, y como vemos y le expliqué antes de empezar a discutir la argumentación oral, Breyer, que fue uno de los temas que él tocó directamente, Sotomayor pues tocó lo de la educación, la constitución, los derechos de la 14ª enmienda, y Breyer se encargó del discurso pues político de la institución, y pues empieza como que aquí donde tengo su rayo, and then there are two sentences I like to read because they say they really mean this. The court not just there to overrule under fire in the absence of the most compelling reason to re-examine a watershed decision will subvert the court legitimacy beyond any serious question. Pues lo que está haciendo Breyer es que está categorizando el derecho al aborto, Roe versus Wade y versus Planned Parenthood, como un watershed decision. Watershed decision, pues Brown versus Board of Education, ese tipo de decisión. Entonces, siguieron los intercambios entre Breyer y Stewart, y entonces Stewart le dice en una parte, and I also like to emphasize, Your Honor, that on a state deficit, just as I say, the last 30 years, workability, development in the law, factual development that states can account for, I think that workability, the undue burden standard alone, many problems. Y ¿verdad? Tengo una inconsistencia a lo que voy, en la doctrina de Qualified Immunity, que es la doctrina que le da básicamente una carta verde a los policías y a sus abusos policiales. Fue una doctrina creada por el tribunal que no tiene ningún texto en la Constitución ni alguna ley pasada por el Congreso que limita grandemente ha creado requisitos adicionales y doctrinas adicionales a una ley que pasó el Congreso simplemente para proveerle a personas que demanden cuando han sido violados de sus derechos constitucionales, que la sección 1483, 16 o 83, si no me equivoco. Y entonces, ¿por qué ahí no? Ah, no, ahí no. Ahí no hay texto de la Constitución que valga. Ahí se basan todo en precedentes y en todo el meollo que han creado, porque van aquí a escuchar que Stewart menciona mucho que el undue burden standard solamente ha creado muchos problemas a las cortes inferiores. Y yo les puedo asegurar que la doctrina de Qualified Immunity y todas las requisitos y el meollo y el arroz con pollo que han hecho ahí le crea más problemas a las cortes inferiores. Y por lo menos una ley que se pasa por el Congreso, pues están representadas a su manera por el pueblo. Y tú sabes, ¿dónde está ahí las ganas de evitar aparentar ser una tercera rama política que lo único que ha hecho es darle luz verde a que los policías sigan abusando de las personas? Entonces Sotomayor ya con las preguntas de Sir Derrisis interrumpe y empieza. What has been an issue in the last 30 years is the line that Casey drew of viability. There has been some difference of opinion with respect to undue burden, but the right of a woman to choose, the right to control her own body, has been clearly set forth since Casey and never challenged. You want us to reject that line of viability and adopt something different? 15 justices over 30 years have, or should I say 30 since Casey, have reaffirmed that basic viability line. 4 has said no to 2 members of this court, but 15 justices have said yes, or barring political backgrounds. It's what Casey talked about when he talked about watershed decisions, ¿verdad? El término que les mencioné ahorita otra vez. Some of them, Brown versus Board of Education, it mentioned, and this one has such an entrenchment set of expectation in our society that is what the court decided. If there is, we will follow. That we won't be able to survive if people believe that everything, including New York versus Sullivan, I could name any other set of rights, including the Second Amendment. By the way, there are many political people who believe the court erred in seeing this as a personal right as opposed to a militia right. If people actually believe that it's all political, how will it survive? How the court will survive? Y excelente punto en cuanto al derecho a portar armas, porque ahí sí la historia y la tradición no valían para nada. Que ahí la historia y la tradición lo que te demuestran es que el derecho a las armas está más relacionado con la milicia que un derecho personal. Vamos a ver qué notita yo puse aquí. Sotomayor con el by the way, jajaja. Ja, ja. Especialmente a Clarence Thomas, que está loco por revocar New York versus Sullivan. Sembró una semillita en el 2019 y Gorsuch resbaló. Clave el watershed decision, como les mencioné. La primera vez que Thomas expresó que el tribunal debía revisar New York versus Sullivan lo fue en el caso de McKee versus Cosby 139S.CT del 675 del 2019, un caso de difamación contra Cosby que el tribunal denegó el certiorari y denegó revisar la decisión. En una opinión concurrente, Thomas expresó New York Times and the court decisions and extending it were policy-driven decisions and the court decision extended it driven decision masquerading as constitutional law. La segunda vez y ahora el juez Gorsuch de aliado fue en el caso de Barish versus Lawson Y en ese caso de Berich, el tribunal decidió no tomar un caso en donde el hijo de un ex primer ministro de Albania reclamó que unos señalamientos de un libro eran difamatorios. El libro luego se convirtió en la película War Dogs. En una opinión disidente, Gorsuch expresó, not only has the doctrine evolved into a subsidy for published falsehood on a scale no one could have foreseen, it has come to leave far more people without redress than anyone could have predicted. Y pues ahí Sotomayor le tiró un gancho bien fuerte a los conservadores y a Alito y a Gorsuch. Y ¿ves? Sotomayor continúa diciéndole Casey analizó todos los requisitos que requiere la doctrina de Starderisis. Siguió, much to the discussion in your paper are to the errors that Casey made. Other than I disagree with Casey. Well, Justice Sotomayor, maybe I can highlight you. Casey gave one paragraph to the workability of Roe. It then adopted the undue burden standard, which is perhaps the most unworkable standard in American law, not los de qualified immunity. It gave about 3 paragraphs, if memory serves, to reliance, which doesn't account for the last 30 years and the changes that have occurred since Casey. Y entonces Sotomayor le pregunta, advancement in medicine. Y Mr. Stewart le contesta, I think it's an advancement in knowing, in knowledge and concern about such thing as fetal pain, what we know the child is doing and looks like and is fully human from a very early, I'm sorry, Justice Sotomayor. In regular cases, court decide whether science fits the Dunbar standard. Obviously, under the Dunbar standard, the minority of people, a gross minority of doctors who believe fetal pain exists before 24, 25 weeks, is a huge minority and no one will found it in science at all. That a small fringe of doctors believe that pain could be appearance between before a cortex is formed. Entonces, yo puse una notita aquí, déjame ver qué puse, que es el criterio de Daubert en Daubert versus Merrell Dow Pharmaceutics. El Tribunal Supremo estableció los requisitos que un testigo perito debe establecer para cumplir con el criterio de que es una persona que cualifica para dar un testimonio sobre la materia que se esté discutiendo en el tribunal. O eso se hace con el interrogatorio y con el contrainterrogatorio, ¿verdad? Sentando las bases. Pues a lo que Sotomayor se refiere es que si tuviéramos un caso y se trajera a estos doctores a testificar y a decir, o a estos secular philosophers o bioethnics a testificar en cuanto a que antes del periodo de viabilidad es vida, no cumpliría con el criterio de Doberts, que es un criterio bien básico del derecho evidenciario. Entonces empieza Roberts interrumpiendo a Sotomayor. General, I know what is said, but viability in Roe. But was viability an issue in this case? I know it wasn't. Brief o argue. Entonces va a ir a preguntarle cosas de viability en Roe y Casey. Entonces Sotomayor interrumpe, may I finish my inquiry, y pues continúa. Aquí viene con la clase de ciencia. Virtually every state defines a brain death as death. Yet the literature is filled with episodes of people who are completely and utterly brain dead responding to a stimuli. There's about 40% of dead people who, if you touch their feet, their foot would recoil. There are spontaneous acts by dead brain people. So I don't think that a response to by a fetus necessarily proves that there's a sensation or pain or that there's consciousness. So I go back to my question of what has changed in science to show that viability line is not a real line, that a fetus cannot survive. And I think that was both Court below said that you're not experts say that it's about viability before 23 or 24 weeks, Mr. Stewart. And what I say is this, Justice Sotomayor, is that the fundamental problem with viability is not really something that rests on a science as much. Is the viability not there enough tender to anything in the Constitution, history, or tradition? It's essentially legislative line. Ajá, tremendo. A la ciencia no le contestas con ciencia, le contestas con el argumento barato de que eso le toca a la legislatura decidirlo. Vuelve Sotomayor, Conso. There's so much that is not in the Constitution, including the fact that we have the last word, Marbury versus Madison. Tukiti, there's not anything in the Constitution that says the court, the Supreme Court, is the last word on the Constitution means. It was totally novel at that time, and yet what the court did was reason from the structure of the Constitution. That's what intended. Tremendo, o sea, la revisión judicial no sale en ningún lado en la Constitución. Hay que recordar que el Parlamento de Inglaterra es supremo. En Inglaterra no existe la revisión judicial y cuando uno va a Marbury versus Madison, Marshall se inventó eso. Ya habían algunos precedentes a nivel estatal donde había revisión judicial de constituciones estatales, pero en Marbury versus Madison, Marshall se lo sacó de la manga production. La doctrina más importante del derecho estadounidense se la inventó un juez. And here, in Casey and Roe, the court said there is an inherent in our structure that are certain person decisions that belong to individual and the states can intrude on them. We recognize them in terms of religion parents would teach their children. We recognize it in their ability to educate at home if they choose. They have to educate them. We have recognized the sense of privacy in people's choices about whether to use contraceptive or not. Volvemos, le está dando una clase magistral de civics y de la estructura de la Constitución, porque el texto está, la libertad que está consagrada en el que no se depriva, no habrá deprivation of liberty, que está en la 14ª enmienda. Let's see it. I fear none of these things are written in the Constitution. They are of like Marbury and Madison being discerned from the structure of the Constitution. Why do we now say that somehow Roe versus Casey are so unusual that they must be overturned? Entonces, eso también le dice, mira, no, lo que te estoy diciendo es que es parte de la estructura de la Constitución y no van más allá de la Constitución, como tú dices. Entonces, viene Stuart, le contesta como que con lo de historia y tradición. And here, those decisively reject the proposition that states cannot legislate comprehensively on abortion before, after viability, and all throughout. So it's history and tradition, Your Honor. Entonces Justin Barrett empieza a preguntarle, one decision in your favor call any of the questions, any of the cases, sorry, that Justice Sotomayor is identifying the question. Entonces él le dice que no, pero mentira, una vez se abre esa puerta verde que tú dices que una mujer no tiene derecho individual para poder abortar, porque los estados tienen luz verde para legislar ese tipo de materia, tú abres la puerta para revocar todos los casos que se han ido desarrollando y que ha decidido el tribunal por la extensión de lógica que emanan de la palabra de libertad. Todos los precedentes mencionados ahí por la jueza Sotomayor. So, él le contesta que no, pero o sea, eso es embuste. O sea, nadie conoce qué van a hacer todos los estados. O sea, ya tenemos 15 estados que están ya preparados para que baje la decisión y empezar a legislar con relación al aborto antes del periodo de viabilidad. Que el problema con el periodo de viabilidad es que, y en el caso de Mississippi, que en 15 semanas, esos son 2 meses, tú no vas a saber el otro punto más bajo, que es 22 semanas, en cuanto al margen de error de la comunidad científica, pues 22 menos 15, 7 semanas. 7 semanas son 1 mes y medio. En 1 mes y medio tú sí te enteras que estás preñado y puedes tomar una decisión razonable. En 1 mes te tarda en darte cuenta, 1 mes y medio te tarda en darte cuenta que no has caído en periodo, así que imagínate. Stuart contesta diciéndole que no, pero, o sea, él lo está ahí diciendo de la boca para afuera, pero está diciendo que Lawrence over Hefel, esos casos tienen una norma clara y una línea clara, a diferencia del derecho al aborto, y que esos casos se diferencian de Roe versus Wade, porque Roe versus Wade no tiene una línea clara de lo que dice y lo que se puede y no se puede hacer. Acá tengo subrayado que Stuart le contesta a Breyer que él no cree que los casos puedan caracterizarse como ser unas decisiones watershed, como les menciono ahorita, que son las decisiones importantísimas como las de Brown versus Board of Education, que eso pues nunca se va a revocar, y sin eso pues la sociedad no hubiera evolucionado favorablemente. Entonces Sotomayor sigue al ataque. I'm not sure your answer makes any sense. Todos los casos anteriores, Griswold, Lawrence, o Gahal, they rely on substantive due process. You're saying there's no substantive due process in the Constitution. So they're just wrong according to your theory. No, Your Honor, we're kind of comfortable with Washington versus Gluckberg. Ese es el único que mencionas, ¿verdad? And how it analyzes substantive due process, and it looks to text history. It looks to history and tradition to discipline the inquiry to make sure. De todos los casos, coge el que te favoreció. Qué conveniencia. Well, I mean, in Ogerfeld, there was no history of same-sex marriage. Toma, buena Sotomayor. I'm not trying to argue that we should overturn those cases. I just think you are dissimulating when you say that any ruling here will have wouldn't have an effect on those. Respectfully, do you think that no state is gonna think otherwise, that no people in the population are going to challenge those cases in court? Atungini. Siguiendo el intercambio, Sotomayor, and that's what we're doing under the undue burden, but we haven't been doing it on the viability line. Y pues Stuart, and neither one has worked well. The viability line dismounts and disregards state interests, and the undue burden standard has all of the problems that we emphasize. How is your interest anything but a religious view? The issue of when life begins has been hotly debated by philosophers since the beginning of time. It's still debated in religions. So when you say this is the only right that taking away from the state the ability to protect life, that's a religious view, isn't it? Respectfully, because it assumes that a federal life at when you're not drawing when do you see it we begin that life? Your Honor, putting it aside from religion, y pues ahí él le mencionó un caso, y la jueza Sotomayor vuelve a decirle, so when does the life of a woman and putting her life at risk enter the calculus? Meaning right now, forcing women who are poor, and that 70% of the population and much higher percentage of the women in Mississippi who elect abortion before viability, they are put at a tremendous greater risk of medical complications and ending their life. 40 times greater to give birth to a child full than it is to have an abortion before viability. Excelente descripción. Ahí viene Alito. General, are these secular philosophers and bioethics who take position that the rights of personhood begin at conception or at some point other than viability? I believe so. Sí, pero ellos no pasarían el estándar de Dobbert, Alito. No pasarían. Para algunas cosas la ciencia sí, para otras cosas no. Se sabe que a ustedes les gusta el junk science. Vamos a ver cuando llegue lo de las vacunas, si llega, que van a decidir. Después de esa pregunta de Alito y del intercambio de Stewart, le toca a Kagan, que vuelve al tema de diéresis, y entonces dice, and so usually there has to be a justification, a strong justification in a case like the beyond the fact that you think the case is wrong. And I guess what strikes me when I look at this case is that, not much has said since Roe and Casey, that people think is a right so wrong based on the things that they have always thought it was right and wrong. Entonces, sigue. 50 years of decision saying that this is a part of our law, that this is a part of the fabric of human existence in this country, and that places us in an entirely different situation than if you had come in 50 years ago and made the same argument. So I just wanted to hear you react to that. Y vuelve con el mismo argumento, que es la misma muletilla para cualquier tipo de argumento, para el de sterderesis, para el de el criterio de adjudicación de viabilidad, para revocar Roe versus Wade y Casey versus Planned Parenthood. They have no basis in the Constitution. They adopt a right that purportedly leaves determination of now millions of human lives. Y verdad, sigue por ahí con la muletilla. Entonces, but if the matter is returned to the people can deal with it. They can work, they can compromise and reach different solutions. Claro, sí, denegarle acceso a reproductive health a las mujeres negras, a las mujeres latinas o todas las anteriores. But if we don't do that, we are just going to have all the sort of damage. And at some point, if the appropriate for the court to say enough, and it has in some of its great overrulings. In Brown, in other cases where it said it's just enough. Seguro, trayendo a Brown cuando le conviene, como si fuera lo mismo, o sea, comparando revocar el derecho al aborto en Roe versus Wade con revocar Plessy versus Ferguson en Brown versus Board of Education. A ese nivel llegan esta gente. Justice Harlan had it right in dissent in Plessy when he recognized that all life are equal, bla, 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 bla. Pero es que no es vida, brother, no es vida. O sea, que en tu mente sea vida no significa que es vida bajo el punto de la ciencia. No entiendo por qué es tan difícil entenderlo. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, mano. Chief Justice Robert le dice a Stuart, mira, en tu certiorari tú hablas de lo de viabilidad, pero te encargas la mayoría del tiempo de hablar porque se debería de revocar Roe versus Wade y Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Y entonces siguen en el intercambio y en cuanto a sterderesis, John Roberts le dice, sterderesis, I think the first issue you look is at whether or not the decision at issue was wrongly decided. I've actually never quite understood how you evaluate that. It is wrongly decided based on legal principles and the doctrine when it was decided, or in retrospect. Esa es una pregunta misleading porque es que no nos podemos poner en los pies de aquella época y de los jueces y por qué decidieron de esa manera y por qué Harlan decidió de esa manera. Es una pregunta bien misleading y más insultante es que estén comparando la revocación que hubo de Plessy versus Ferguson con Brown versus Board of Education con revocar Roe versus Wade y Casey versus Planned Parenthood en este caso. Y entonces Stuart le contesta, well, I say, Mr. Chief Justice, that you can look at both what is wrong at time, and it has unmasked as wrong by understanding new knowledge and developments. So really, while overruling Roe and Casey, the court won't have to go down the road, and a lot of those decisions are quite really groundable in history, tradition, and the court's traditional factors, Your Honor. Entonces, ahora vamos a un intercambio de Kagan otra vez, en donde le dice, you know, I'm just sort of thinking about the great variety of difference of regulation that states could pass. So whether one is 15 weeks and one is 12 weeks and one is 9 weeks, or a variation across a wide variety of other dimensions. What would that look like coming to the court? How do you think we should be able to deal with that, or how would you counsel deal with that if the court were to go down that road? Well, I think that is not to push back against that end, and I will answer your question, Justice Kagan, but part of why wife counsel to overrule Fulkel is that the only way to get rid of a number of problems that you think your honors is alluding to. O sea, le está diciendo que para evitar eso de que se dé luz verde a los estados, y hay una dimensión en un montón de estados donde varía la línea que ponen cuando regulan el aborto antes del periodo de viabilidad, pues para evitar que la corte se encuentre ante un meollo de no puede manejar o no sabe cómo manejar todos los casos que se pidan ver en el Supremo, que llegan a donde él, pues él dice que para eso hay que revocar Roe versus Wade para que la corte evite tener ese tipo de problemas. Kavanaugh le pregunta, and to be clear, you arguing that the court somehow has the authority, and to be clear, you're not arguing that the court somehow has the authority to itself prohibit abortion, or that the court has authority to order the state to prohibit abortion, as I understand it. Correct? Correct, Your Honor. And as I understand it, you're arguing that the Constitution is silent and therefore neutral on the question of abortion. In other words, that the Constitution is neither pro-life or pro-choice on the question of abortion, and leave the issues for the people of the state or perhaps Congress to resolve the democratic process. Is that accurate? Bueno, lo único que yo te puedo decir es que el Congreso resolvió el problema de violaciones constitucionales por policía en el estatuto, y ustedes lo han enmendado y lo han degollado, lo han limitado grandemente con su meollo de jurisprudencia en Qualified Immunity. Tenemos los guardias, a los policías haciendo lo que les da la gana porque tienen un meollo de jurisprudencia y requisitos que los vaquea. Y a menos que sea algo como lo que le pasó en Minnesota, que se vio ahí en televisión, o como los otros casos, pues los policías salen por la libre, y las violaciones constitucionales y los que las sufrieron quedan sin remedio. Y otra cosa, o sea, no podemos ver la Constitución como algo que para lo que se escribió en ese momento. Las constituciones van evolucionando con la sociedad, eso es parte de la sociología, y ahí es que entra lo de la estructura y el término de libertad consagrado en la 14ª enmienda. Esa estructura hace que la Constitución se adapte a la realidad social, que permite que los individuos puedan tomar decisiones relacionadas con su autonomía y con su libertad. Cabana y Alito, pues, ¿verdad? Para mí no son, no hicieron preguntas ahí tan. Alito, en verdad, no puedo quitarme de la mente todos estos días durmiendo lo de philosophers, lo de secular philosophers y bioethics. Entonces, Barrett empieza otra vez hablando de Esther Derris y hablando de Plessy y de Brown. Y entonces dice, but in thinking about Esther Derris, we obviously the core of this case. How should we be thinking about it? I mean, Justice Barrett pointed out that in case in some respects, so it was different conception of Esther Derris insofar as it's very explicitly took into account public reaction. Is that factor that you accept, or are you arguing that we should minimize that factor? And is there a different set of rules if it is true that Casey identified Brown and Westcott Hotel as Waterhouse decision, but is there a distinct set of third decision considerations applicable to what the court might decide is a Waterhouse distinction? Stuart empieza hablando. I think that one reason why traditionally the court is in some overruling, it is not looking without. It's saying that was wrong, it was wrong, the date it was decided. We know it was wrong, and it led to all these terrible consequences. We should get rid of it. I think that that was on a watershed break, and I think the court, even if the court were to still look at legitimacy through Justice Barrett, I think the court could very, very profoundly say, look, our legitimacy really derived from a willingness to stand strong and stand firm in the face of whatever is going on and stand for constitutional principle and follow our traditional third decisis factor to overrule when it's appropriate. Claro, pero cuando te mencionan los factores de third decisis, lo que tú dices es que no se encuentra en ningún lado en la Constitución y en el texto de la Constitución. Eso no es argumentar los requisitos y los factores que toman en cuenta Esther Derrick, especialmente en Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Entonces, ahora vamos a pasar a los argumentos de Rickman, nombre de los respondents, y empieza con una breve introducción. Mississippi ban on abortion 2 months before viability is flatly unconstitutional under decades of precedent. Mississippi asked the court to dismantle this precedent, allow states to force women to remain pregnant and give birth against their will. The court should refuse to do so for at least 3 reasons. First, Esther Derrick. Second, Casey and Roe were correct. For a state to take control of a woman's body and did that she go through pregnancy and childbirth with all the physical risk and life-standing consequence that bring it is a fundamental deprivation of her liberty. Third, eliminating or reducing the right to abortion will propel women backwards. The generations have now relied on this right, and no one ever, and 1 out of every 4 women makes the decision to end a pregnancy. Justin Counsel vuelve con sus preguntas textuales, que en donde en la Constitución se encuentra este derecho, de qué teoría, casi de la privacidad o de la autonomía. Entonces Thomas viene y le saca un caso ahí raro de South Carolina relacionado con la cocaína y una mamá que estaba preñada y ¿verdad? Algo ahí tratando como que de confundir al abogado. Entonces Reichman le dice a la pregunta de about viability or well as post viability, Reichman le dice, no, Your Honor, the court has been clear that after viability, states can prohibit abortion except to save a woman's life. No, I mean, it's my example of criminal child neglect. I'm trying to look at the issues of bodily autonomy and whether or not she has a right also to bodily autonomy in the case ingesting an illegal substance and causing harm to a pre-ability fetus. O sea, what the fuck, Thomas? What the fuck? Recommend, Your Honor. Of course, those issues aren't posed in this case. And again, I will say that the states can certainly regulate through pregnancy, both before and after viability, to pressure fetal life and to preserve the woman's health. The court has said, however, there is other constitutional issue at stake. For instance, in Ferguson case, the states cannot violate women's Fourth Amendment rights. But again, that's not what this case is about. The case is about a ban on abortion that state considers weeks before viability, and the court has been clear for 50 years that one thing that states cannot do is to take the decision completely away from the woman until viability. That until that point is their decision to make given the unique physical demands of pregnancy and the life altering consequence of pregnancy and having a child. Más claro, no lo expresó el abogado. Entonces, Justin Robert le pregunta, the point you made about the impact on women and their places in society, the word uncertain many roles, well, what we have before though is a 15-week standard. Are you suggesting that the difference between 15 weeks and viability are going to have the same sort of impact as you were talking about or as we were talking about in Roe? Yes, Your Honor. Volvemos. 22 menos 15 son 7 semanas, un mes y medio. Yes, Your Honor. Believe they will, because people who need abortion after 50 weeks are often in the most challenging circumstances. Y ahí da un montón de razones, la escuela, mujeres pobres, los riesgos de físico, de un embarazo, pérdida de trabajo, divorcio, separación, enfermedad en la familia, que no pueden tener el hijo, un cambio de salud grande en la persona, entre muchos factores. Y mira, para lo que le conviene, el juez Roberts pregunta, I'm sorry, what kind of data is that? Mira, o sea, pero a Alito no le preguntas lo de secular philosophers y lo de bioethics, ¿verdad que no? Tacho. Entonces, Roberts, well, putting the data aside, if you think that the issue is to terminate their pregnancy, that suppose that there is a point at which they had the fair choice, opportunity to choice, and why would weeks be unprepared on that? Because viability, it seems to me, doesn't have anything to do with choice. For a few reasons, Your Honor. First, the state has considered that some women will not be able to obtain abortion before 50 weeks. Sencillo. States will rush to ban abortion at virtually any point in pregnancy. Mississippi itself has a 6-week ban that is defending with very similar argument and is using to defend the 15 weeks ban. And there are states that have bans. When you go to the viability standard, we share the standard with the people of Republic of China and North Korea. Más preguntas misleading y al garete, and I don't think you have to be in favor or look into international law to set our constitutional standard to be concerned if those are your shared the political time period. I think there's two questions there, Your Honor. If I may, first, there is no correct, that is not correct about international law. In fact, the majority of countries that permit legal access to abortion allow access right up unto viability, even if they have nominal lines earlier. So, for example, Canada, Great Britain, and other Europe allow access to abortion right up to viability, and it also doesn't have the same barriers in place. What do you mean, even if they have nominal lines earlier? Some countries, Your Honor, have a nominal line of 12 weeks or 18 weeks, but they permit legal access to abortion after that point for broad social reasons, health reasons, economic reasons y todas las razones que mencioné anteriormente, que él le preguntó, y la data en eso. Ahora vamos con Justice Barrett, que en verdad esto, o sea, no sé qué dice, pero esto está un poco al garete. Safe Haven Laws, ¿verdad? Estos son leyes relacionadas con adopción. Mr. Rockman, I have a question about the Safe Haven Law. So petitioner points out that in all 50 states, you can terminate parental rights by relinquishing a child after abortion. And I think the shortest period might have been 40 hours, if I remember that correctly. So it seems to me, seen in that light, both Roe and Casey emphasize the burden of parenting, and insofar as you may or your amici focus on the way in which focused parenting, forced motherhood will hinder women access to the workplace and to equal opportunity. It also focus on the concept on parenting and the obligations of motherhood that flow from pregnancy. Why don't the Safe Haven laws take care of that problem? It seems to me that it focuses the burden much more narrowly. There is, without question, an infringement on body autonomy, we have in other contexts like vaccine. However, it doesn't seem to me to follow that pregnancy and parenthood are part of the same burden. Está aquí tocando agua un poco al garete, Barrett. Mr. Rackman, I think they don't matter for a couple of reasons, Your Honor. First, even if some of those laws are new, since Casey, the idea that a woman could place a child up for adoption has, of course, been through Science Row. So it's a consideration that the court already had before it went decided those cases in a her to availability line. Stop. Barrett ha adoptado a varios niños y yo creo que ella tiene 3 niños negritos o 2 niños negritos. ¿Qué tú estás diciendo de esos niños que tú adoptaste? Que tú los adoptaste para salvarlos de sus madres negra y viniste tú, el white savior, a salvarle la vida a esos niños negritos. Eso dice mucho en cuanto a tus preguntas y a cómo tú ves el aborto, Barrett, para estar haciendo esa pregunta. Y, ¿verdad? Yo creo que es desafortunado que se haya hecho esa asimilación o esa expresión de que tú no crees, Barrett, de que hay una relación entre el embarazo y las obligaciones y los burdens del parenthood. Imposes unique physical demands and risks on women, and in fact has impact all of their lives and their ability to care for other children, other family members, and their ability to work. And in particular, in Mississippi, the risks are alarmingly high. It's 70 times more dangerous to give birth in Mississippi than it has to be pre-ability abortion. And those rights are disproportionately threatening the lives of women of color. So you're saying, I mean, actually, as I read Roe and Casey, they don't talk very much about adoption. It's a passing reference that means out of the obligation of parenthood. But as I heard this answer, then are you saying that the right, as you conceive of it, is grounded primarily in the bearing of the child and the carrying of a pregnancy, and not so much looking forward into the consequence on professional opportunities and work life and economic burdens? No, Your Honor. I believe that both, and that is exactly how Casey talked about it. Ves que es bien confuso ella usando su experiencia personal de adopción y las razones que ella ha tenido para imponer ese burden de salvación y adopción a las mujeres, obligándolas a tener un embarazo forzoso en contra de su voluntad. It talked about 2 strands of cases that supported the right. One was the strand of cases supported broader integrity, and it cited 2 cases like Curson and Riley Riggins versus Nevada, And the second was the strand of cases supporting decisional autonomy, and specifically decisions related to childbearing, marriage, and procreation. Decisions like Griswold and Loving. And so it's really both strands that we're on here. Joseph Gosher le hace una pregunta a Esther Derris y cómo el otro colega de la parte contraria le hizo un señalamiento de que Casey cambió lo del trimester de Roe y que tenía que decir sobre eso. Y entonces Reitman le contesta, yes, Your Honor, the first point I like to make is the undue burden. That is not an issue in this case. That is the test that applies to regulations, not prohibitions. And the state has considered that this is a prohibition. In fact, the title of this law is the Act to Prohibit Abortion after 15 weeks. And the only thing that added to this case is the viability line, and the viability line has been enduringly workable. The lower federal courts have applied consistently and uniformly for 50 years. And if I may return to your question, Mr. Chief Justice, a reasonable possibility standard will not be workable. It will ultimately boil down to argument that states can prohibit a category of women from exercising a constitutional right merely because of the number of people in the category. And that's just not how constitutional rights work. A state will never say that it could ban religious services on a Wednesday evening, for example, simply because most people could attend religious services on another night of the week. I believe, if I may clarify, that under the Byrd text, I believe that the undue burden test has been workable for regulation that is. I understand that, Lacey Gorsuch. If there were to apply in the court were to, and I thought it was what you were saying in response to Chief Justice, but maybe I'm mistaken, and please correct me if I am. But what is your argument against applying the undue burden standard prior to viability? If the undue burden standard, as the court laid out in cases, which includes the viability time, is applied. Justice Gorsuch, no, I'm asking, I know, we're fighting the hypothetical here, counsel. All right, accept the hypothetical. If hypothetically the court were to extend the undue burden standard to regulation prior to viability, would that be workable or would that not be workable in your view? Without viability, there will be, it will not be workable. O sea, no puede sustituir nada, no puede sustituir la norma que hay en el presente con algo que sea tan satisfactorio o más satisfactorio que la norma que hay actualmente, que es la línea de viabilidad. Always come down to a claim that says he can bar a certain category of people from exercising this right simply because of the number of people in the category. And that's not a workable standard, and it's not a constitutional standard. Alito, just to follow on that, I read your brief. You brief to say that only real options we have are to reaffirm Roe and Casey as they stand, overrule them in their entirety. You said that there is no half measure here. Is that a correct understanding of your brief? Y él le dice, but Your Honor, it's certainly the arguments that the state has presented that the state has presented was we're responding to there. Which is that all of this argument, including their alternatives, we are on the route without viability, will be the equivalent of overruling Casey and Roe versus and Roe, because the viability line in the central holding of those cases. O sea que cualquier alternativa, que la otra alternativa, por eso es que Gorsuch le estaba preguntando, es mover el undue burden test a las regulaciones que hagan los estados antes del periodo de viabilidad. Entonces ahí menciona June Medical y sigue hablando Alito sobre el punto medio y si hay un punto medio para resolver la controversia, le hace después preguntas sobre viability line. Eh, Entonces, continúa haciéndole preguntas de viability line en cuanto a las mujeres, si tienen el mismo derecho una vez llega al viability line, pero son unas preguntas no claras y un poco ambiguas y no se entienden. Y Whiteman siempre es preciso y es que el viability is a principle line, Your Honor, because in ordering the interest, will you agree with me at least on the point that a woman still have the same interest in terminating her pregnancy after the viability line has been crossed? Yes, Your Honor, but the court balanced the interest. Okay, and is ordering the interest at stake. Look at the déjame ver qué es lo que está subrayado aquí. Entiendo lo que dice. Look at the interest. Interest es lo que dice. On the other side, the fetus has an interest in having a life, and that doesn't change, does it? From the point before viability to the point after viability. ¿Cómo el fetus va a tener un interés a tener vida si no es vida? No es vida. O sea, wow. Entonces vuelve y toca lo de los philosophical difference y los secular philosopher y de la propia line y hablé de eso y el Dumb Science y Rickman le contesta no, Your Honor, it is principle because in ordering the interest at stake the court had to set a line because conception and birth and its logical look at the fetus ability to survive separated as a legal line because it's objectively verifiable and doesn't require the court to revive the philosophical issues at stake. El Webbriar, siguiendo una línea de Barrett, empieza a hacerle una pregunta a Wright de lo que para él significa Casey, después de las preguntas de Roberts, que obviamente ya lleva contado sus intervenciones dando indicios de que el viability line no va para ningún lado, y menciona a Breyer, when I read Casey, it's not just one on one, you know, two is greater than one. Casey plus Row is greater than it is. They're making a point that we're an institution, perhaps more than a court of appeals or a district court. It's Hamilton's point, no purse nor sword, and yet we have to have public support, and that comes primarily, says Casey. I wonder if it was O'Connor who wrote this. I don't know. Puede ser, pues, si es parte de la mayoría del tribunal. Fue O'Connor la que lo escribió. And that's what kills us as an American institution, that what they're saying. So we're looking at it for that. But we're looking at it too, and that's they say is a reason why. A reason why when you get a case like that, you better be damn sure that the normal state considerations, third derivatives, overruling are really there in spades, double, triple, quadruple, and then they go through, and so they're not, okay? Entonces Justin Thomas vuelve con sus líneas de pregunta de dónde viene el derecho al aborto, el textualismo. Entonces Breitbart vuelve y dice del concepto de libertad que está incrustado ahí en la 14ª enmienda. Entonces Thomas le dice, yeah, all those sort of just come out of Lochner, como que todos esos casos de rise and fall of economic due process y el caso de Lochner. So I understand what you're saying, but what I'm trying to focus on is to lower the level of generality or at least be a little bit more specific. In the old days, we used to say it was a right to privacy that the court found in the due process. Substantive due process clause. Okay, so in the substantive due process, and I'm trying to get you to tell me what are you relying on now? It is privacy, it is autonomy, what is it? I think it continues to be liberty and the right exists whatever level of generality the court applies. There was a traditional under the common law for centuries of women being able to end their pregnancies. Entonces ahora viene una serie de preguntas con Alito en donde hablan del common law. Alito le pregunta si hay una tradición y un trasfondo histórico en Estados Unidos en donde se practica el aborto. Reichman le contesta que sí, que hay varios casos, que hubo una época que empezaron a dejar un lado el common law y a establecer sus propias reglas. Aquí mira, Reichman le dice, allowing a state to take control of a woman's body and force her to undergo the physical demand, risk, and life-altering consequence of pregnancy is a fundamental deprivation of her liberty. And once the court recognized that the liberty interests deserve heightened protection, it does need to draw a workable line, and viability is a line that logically balances the interests at stake. Entonces habla, Alito le menciona un brief del American Historical Association, en donde no era legal before quickening en 26 de 37 estados al momento de que se adoptó la enmienda 14. Esto es correcto, y él le dice, that is correct because some of the state has started to discard the common law at the point because of a discriminatory view that the woman's proper role was a wife as a mother, a view that the Constitution now rejects, and that is why it is appropriate to the historical analysis that a higher level of generality. Alito, in the face of that, can it say that the right to abortion is a deeply rooted in the tradition and history of the American people? Yes, it can, Your Honor. Again, as the founding, women were able to end their pregnancy under the common law. And in fact, this court in Gluckenberg especially decided this court in Glucksburg especially decided discuss Casey as a decision based on history and tradition at note 19. Wow, se sabe la nota de memoria. Especially call out and rely on Rose's conclusion that at time of the founding and well into the 1900s, women had the ability to end a pregnancy. Entonces, vuelve un intercambio con Cámara en cuanto a que la Constitución no dice si es pro-life, a favor de la vida, etcétera. Y Reichman vuelve a hacer la explicación sencilla: the Constitution provides a guarantee of liberty. The court has interpreted the liberty to include the ability to make decisions related to child, bearing, marriage, family. Women have an equal vital liberty under the Constitution, Your Honor. And if they're not able to make this decision, if states can take control of women's bodies and force them to endure months of pregnancy and childbirth, then they will never have equal status under the Constitution. Entonces seguimos con Kavanaugh y el abogado. Ahora estamos hablando de Sterderisis. Kavanaugh menciona algunos casos que fueron revocados y casos que revocaron casos, y viene y dice, so I assume you agree with me. If not all the cases I listed there where the court overruled the president, So the question on third derisives is why if, and not why I disagree with what, but I'm about to say if we think that the prior precedents are seriously wrong, if that, why then doesn't the history of this court practice with respect to those cases tell us what the right answer is actually a return to the position and neutrality and not a stick with those precedents in the same way that all those other cases didn't? Because the view that the previous precedent is wrong, Your Honor, has never been enough for this court to overrule, and it certainly should be enough here where there's 50 years of precedence. Que esté mal decidido en la mente de unos jueces, pues no significa, y eso no está en los requisitos de stare decisis a la hora de aplicar la doctrina. Vuelve, ¿verdad? Barrett en cuanto a hablar del principio de la viabilidad, si era un principio en cuanto al derecho constitucional se refería. Hablan del 14th Amendment, el Due Process Clause, las constituciones estatales, los tribunales supremos estatales, y entonces Reichman empieza diciéndole, Your Honor, it may be, but I think that the question is in the case whether a line is obviously more principled or obviously more workable than viability because the state air decisis contest. Why? I mean, that's the rule framework, basically, the trimester. Why wouldn't that be workable if you pick a line and say that the end of the second trimester, 27 weeks, the third trimester, state interest increase? I understand why 27 weeks is less workable than 24, Mr. Reichman. I'm not trying to suggest it is, Your Honor. What I was trying to say is that the viability line is a principle and workable line. So to change it, there will have to be a new line that's obviously more perceptive and more workable. Exacto lo que lleva tratando de decir toda la argumentación, y le vuelven a hacer la misma pregunta. Y entonces viene, as a matter of prudential judgment, is not constitutionally required as a matter of fair principle, because in fact, we could decide to be more protective and say 27 weeks, end of the second trimester. You could, Your Honor, but the viability line makes sense given the protection for liberty because it comes from the woman's liberty interest in real and in resisting state control of her body. And once the court recognition that interest, it does need to draw a line. And it does in many other constitutional contexts like the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. And the viability line, as I mentioned, makes sense because it focuses on the fetus' ability to survive separately, which is an appropriate legal law because it's objectively verifiable and doesn't derive into philosophical questions about when life begins. Después vino la General Prologue, que es la designada por el gobierno federal para argumentar en el Supremo Federal en los casos. En esta ocasión está argumentando en un amicus brief a favor del derecho al aborto. Se encarga en verdad de discutir los presentes, los criterios de cert decisis y por qué no deberían de revocar Roe versus Wade. Entonces, ahora por último, pasemos al rebuttal de Stewart, que básicamente resume sus puntos finales como sigue. I will also add that is two burdens during pregnancy. I will emphasize that contraception is more accessible and affordable and available than it was at the time of Roe versus Casey. It served the same goal of allowing women to decide if, when, and how many children to have. Lo que no te dicen es que desde hace un tiempo llevan limitando, argumentando y sometiendo reclamos para hacer que empleadores públicos y privados, bajo un argumento de libertad de culto, no tengan que cumplir con regulaciones y leyes federales como el Obamacare de darle beneficios de reproductive healthcare como contraceptivo a sus empleados. Entonces, no ha cambiado nada. Entonces, como tú dices, los contraceptivos no son accesibles, como Sotomayor mencionó, que 19% de la población de mujeres en Mississippi no tiene acceso a esos remedios. I will also note that, frankly, the lowest court abortion at Jackson Women's Health is $600 for abortion, additional cost and further fee. According to my friends, the respondents and their amici, there are also additional costs related to travel, taking off time off work. Number two, I think you, Justice Kavanaugh, you had it exactly right when you use the term scrupulously neutral. I think that's a very good description of what we're asking for here. I think it's the problem and the value that has evaluated that the court and will continue to weigh this court under Roe and Casey, but that is exactly right. This is a hard issue. It involves, and I will emphasize, Your Honor, that as you say, there are interests here on both sides. There are interests for everyone involved. This is a unique for the woman. It's unique for the unborn child to whose life is at stake in all of those decisions, in all of these decisions. It's unique for us as a society in how we decide if we, the state, get to legislate on this issue, how to decide and how to weigh this tremendously momentous issue. In closing, I would like to say that it is in dissent in Plessy versus Ferguson. Justice Harlan emphasized that there is no caste system here. The humblest in our country is the pure, the most powerful. Our Constitution neither knows nor tolerant decision of the basis of race. En verdad que es una falta de respeto para mí y una lavada en la cara de lechuga que estén comparando con este caso, revocar Roe versus Wade, con lo que pasó con Brown versus Board of Education, revocando Plessy versus Ferguson. Y nada, ahí tuvieron todo el análisis de los argumentos orales en el caso del aborto de Dobbs y Mississippi Women's Health Services. Lo que viene por ahí no es favorable. Lo más probable es no revoquen directamente Roe versus Wade, pero quiten los criterios de adjudicación de viabilidad establecidos en Roe. Por lo tanto, van a revocar Casey sin decírnoslo y va a ser un free for all con las mujeres. Nada, vamos a seguir manteniéndonos al tanto mis redes sociales de cualquier cosa que salga del aborto. Todavía sigue pendiente la decisión de Texas y el SB 8 que no la han anunciado. Así que en Texas las mujeres todavía siguen sin un remedio al aborto. Nada, gracias como siempre por el patrocinio. Live long and prosper. Cuídense. Mucha salud y bendiciones para todos, para su familia. Espero que estén todos bien y que hayan pasado una feliz Thanksgiving con su familia y que estén ready para esperar la Navidad. Cuídense.